Sorry if this sounds bad. Not used to using my phone. Ran over here to record this. Obviously, I'm traveling, not at my computer when I really should be, but you know, that's life. Israel just attacked Iran. Claimed it did so to disable its nuclear facilities, but in a remarkable coincidence, Netanyahu's government was really, really close to collapsing, and he has, as he's always been using the threat of an Iranian nuclear weapon as an excuse to justify his continued leadership. So they bomb Iran, they prompt obvious retaliation. Likely Iran is going to strike American sites in the region, which is why we cleared our people out of sites in Iraq. Look, it's really bad. It's really, really, really bad. And it's so cynical too. Jesus. It's, look, there's a lot of obvious shit here, okay? Trump has not been the most complicit with the Israeli regime, probably because he has his own loyalties, allegiances. Qatar bought him a plane, you know. He likes stuff like that. Netanyahu's annoying, he doesn't like dealing with him. But on Monday, Trump went to Camp David. He had a meet and greet with a bunch of military leaders. And also, wow, a phone call with Netanyahu right after. And Netanyahu today said that, wow, it was on Monday that he decided to carry out this attack. We were in the middle of talks with Iran to try to secure some kind of deal in order to avoid the weapons-grade enrichment of uranium. Whether or not that deal would have worked is at this point irrelevant. The United States agreed to this. We took our hands off and we said, whatever, Israel, you go for it. Because of our, continuous undying loyalty to them and our mutual business interests. Man, I really do not know how to hold a phone. I don't know what the etiquette is. It took me 5 years to just barely get used to talking to a computer. Well, the phone's a tiny computer. Look, right now the United States has taken its hands off. It said, we've allowed Israel to engage in the strike. We're not involved. We're only concerned about the safety of our people in the region. Right now, that might be true. However, Iran is likely to retaliate, especially given the severity of this strike. Massive escalation by Israel. They've leveled an entire apartment building. You can see photos of it. It's possible they've killed the leader of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard. I'm not working on the most up-to-date information, but this was a really bad strike. And of course, it's an Israeli strike, so it's mostly civilians taking the brunt. Iran generally has been a fan of proportional responses where they talk up a big game, but then they do a little performative flourish of attacks in order to indicate to their allies and their population that they're not taking this sitting down. But Iran has for a long time now not been willing to commit to a real counterattack. Maybe this time they will. I don't know. I don't know whether or not Iran is capable of meaningfully fighting Israel. Obviously, Israel has much more advanced weaponry. Iran is a much larger country. All I know is that it's been 100 years now? No. I mean, Israel is still fighting the war in the West Bank. Or sorry, in Gaza. And I mean, to an extent, in the West Bank. They weren't able to meaningfully cripple Hezbollah, you know? The Israeli military is well equipped, and there are a lot of them. I genuinely do not know how they'd hold up if Iran decided to engage in real reprisal. Whatever. This is all hypotheticals down the line. It was a big attack. Israel is the aggressor. They're warmongers. This is being done cynically. The only reason they're doing this is because Netanyahu wants to preserve his war cabinet. He knows the moment war is done, he's out. And even the ongoing wars are getting to get a little bit tiring. I don't think this excuse runs anymore. How many years could he keep up Hamas just keeps coming back over and over and over. We need to do something about it. Don't worry, just keep me 10, 20 more years and I'll deal with them. Eventually, it just doesn't work anymore. It was about to stop working. Hence the strike. Look, I have no idea whether or not the U.S. is going to get involved in the future. Maybe Iran attacks Israel in reprisal, which, by the way, Israel started it, and America gets involved for that reason. Maybe the inevitable attacks on U.S. Army bases, maybe that gets its own reprisal. I have no idea. This is psychotic, okay? The American people do not want to die for Israel. The American people do not want war with Iran. Maybe some tiny portion, but overwhelmingly there's no appetite for this. I don't even think Trump wanted this. This is deep state shit. This is MI6 shit. It's disgusting. It's cynical. The death toll is This strike was, I mean, it's an Israeli strike, like I said, so of course it's civilians, you know? Anyway, I'll try to record more as soon as I'm able to, but I have to go. Good luck out there to the citizens of Iran, primarily, because they are definitely going to be getting struck more with more American munitions fired by Israel. So, yeah, I don't know. It's reprehensible. Hey, sorry for the scuff video. I'm away. Obviously, all this stuff happens when I'm away. There's a bit of big news. Well, there's a lot of big news. Sorry, I'm not very good at holding the phone camera. You'll have to forgive me for that. A judge has issued an order pausing the deployment of the National Guard to California, or to Los Angeles. Sorry, I jumped ahead on this one. The National Guard is usually controlled by governors, by state governors, right? Each state has their own National Guard. The president can take the National Guard if he wants to do something wacky with it. You know, I say he because Hillary lost and Kamala lost. I say he when I refer to the president broadly. Also, Trump's a he. Don't get mad. Don't get triggered. Essentially, it is very, very, very uncommon for a president to requisition the National Guard without the approval of the state's governor. Last time that happened was the 60s. It was civil rights business. You can look it up. It's interesting. Gavin Newsom, of course, has been very open in his disdain for the president and his use of the National Guard. Of course, the use of the National Guard in this case is objectively absurd. The deployment of thousands of troops to Los Angeles when, for one, you take a look at the live streams going on down there, the police have it handled, okay? It's the LAPD. They're a small army. They have it handled. Tiny little protests, tiny little protests. You have a few hundred people out in the street. The president screams, we need thousands of soldiers down there? No, of course not. It's all political theater. Kristi Noem said it best today in the same press conference where, she saw her guards tackle and detain a California senator. She said it right there, that the National Guard are there to liberate Californians from their governor, from their governance. So the idea that this has anything to do with like protecting, I mean, if you watch me, you already understand this. You know how bad faith they are, but they're admitting it here. Anyway, a judge, Newsom filed a lawsuit. Newsom said, you know, this is a ridiculous use of the National Guard. The excuse provided by Trump to deploy them nationally doesn't work. It doesn't jive. And incredibly, I guess, because, you know, nothing ever happens types or whatever, a judge has agreed and has said that he's issuing a pause, which takes effect noon Friday. That's tomorrow. For people who don't know how the week works, issued a pause saying once this pause takes effect, the National Guard are meant to be returned to the control of Governor Newsom, which is pretty significant, you know? The reason the judge has done this, apparently, is because he believes that the sort of emergency ruling that is going to be had on this, when it begins on the 20th, when the fact finding like properly begins, the judge thinks there's a very reasonable assumption to be made that it will be found that the president has violated the 10th Amendment. So it exceeded the limitations of the emergency statute for taking control of the National Guard. This is actually a huge deal because normally the Trump administration just ignores these court rulings, right? Normally they just blow them off. You know, what are the consequences? There's no harm. This time though, I mean, this is pretty big. I mean, they're fighting over command of troops. You know, this is the kind of stuff you read about in history books. If the Trump administration doesn't relinquish control in compliance with the judge's order, I mean, we've been through a million constitutional crises, right? But clearly there are lines yet to be crossed. But how can Trump relinquish control, right? How can an authoritarian, how can a strongman, how can a fascist, launch this assault on our democracy? It's not just for California. The memo that Trump signed, by the way, is meant to go into effect. It has gone into effect for all states. Already Republican governors are bringing in their National Guards. In Texas, in Missouri, they brought out the Guard before protests even happened, you know? They are using this as a pretext to instigate martial law. This is, for them, the beginning of the plan. If they let a judge stop this with an injunction, the thing that they so publicly despise, I don't know. I have no idea what's going to happen. What a great time to be on vacation, right? Well, good luck to you folks. You know, you're following it live, all right? I'm going to go have some food. Take care.